Hello, I'm Ben. Welcome to the channel. So today we're going to talk about interviewing, and if you are trying to find a job, trying to select the best opportunity for you, that generally starts in what your skill set is, but also what you're interested in. And I think a lot of people don't think about that. I think they think any job will do. I just need to earn some money. That might be how you feel at the moment, but if you can find a job that's something you're into or something you like or something that gives you the opportunity to grow or piques your interest, that's what you should try for out of the gate. So let's talk about interviewing and how you get the job once you decide how to apply. So there's a couple of different ways. The majority of applications these days is done online, right? Through Indeed or through LinkedIn or something like that, some online service where you look at tons of jobs and you apply to hundreds maybe, and you may not hear anything back from that. So the first thing that you have to think about is the wording and the terms that you're using in your resume, especially in your resume title, because AI is now a very real obstacle to applying to jobs and getting jobs. A lot of the times, the majority of the folks that apply to a position will not even get into the interview process because they get kicked out by AI. So just know that's something you're up against. So maybe how you submit your resume or submit your application, maybe that should be done in person as often as possible. Most places, if you walk in and say, hey, I'm interested in working here or working with you here, do you have an application? Most of them will have a paper application on hand. I ran several locations for one business, and basically I had people accept resumes and applications as a walk-in, and then we would call those folks back if they were a good fit. Rarely did I find or look or even seek out applicants that were online applicants for those positions, and those were plants that hired anywhere from 15 to 100 to 150 employees. So it does depend on the interviewer's objective or what they're trying to do on how you get in front of them and get to talk about your case. So let's talk about what you want to do before you get in front of someone that's interviewed you. So at this point, you've submitted a resume and now you're going to do an interview. You want to show up to that interview 15 minutes early, okay? You want to be dressed professionally, whatever that is for you. It should be that you're there and you're clearly trying to put forth your best self, your best effort. You want to have a copy of your resume. And guys, if you don't have a resume, make one. There are tons of books on how to make resumes and resume writing. There are tons of keys online about resume and resume writing. I would try to find a format and a template in a way to set up your resume, because certain templates look better and it calls attention to what you want to highlight. So if you have a lot of work experience, you want to highlight that work experience and specific things you did in those roles. If you have a lot of education and educational experience where you were in schools for a long period of time, you can talk about projects and specific things you did where it separated you from the bunch in school. So that's a different way to look at it. But thirdly, if you're submitting a resume and you don't have educational experience or school experience, you're just starting out, that is perfectly fine. You want to put the high school classes you completed there. If you got your diploma, you want to put that there. If you got a GED, you want to put that there. But go ahead and start doing certifications online. You can do certifications online through Google and through several other sources. You can look for free classes. You can look for free seminars and things like that. Start documenting those things, and you can put those on your resume under education. And then when it comes to work, if you've done volunteer work, especially if you've done that over years of time, you can put that in there. And that shows that you have stability, that you were doing something very specific during a period of time. And that in itself may be enough to pique interest and get you in for an interview, okay? If you're applying to positions that are thought-provoking type roles, where if you're going to be in leadership, you're going to be in support, customer support, or you're going to be in anything that touches other people that the firm relies upon, there are several traits, and I would say these are key traits that employers want from an employee. So your resume and those things need to suggest that you have these traits. So the first trait is adaptability. They want to know that you have the capability and have the function thought process to get through anything that lands in front of you. So adaptability is number one. Sometimes people mess around with the interview. They purposely make you wait 15 or 20 minutes. They purposely change the location at the last minute, etc., because they think that's showing adaptability. I think that's an annoyance. So in the interview process, you want to be professional, but the people that are interviewing you should be professional as well. So you should not do certain things. We'll get into that in just a few minutes around that. But in these traits, adaptability is number one, because you want to be able to adapt and basically be an asset in any situation to help your team and help the company through that situation, whatever that may be. The second one is strong communication skills. You need to be able to spell correctly. You need to be able to use words appropriately. And, in the modern culture, we do have a lot of words that we use that are not real words, okay? And I don't care if it's in the modern dictionary of grammar or whatever they call it. Street language doesn't belong in a professional situation because other people might not understand what you're talking about or referencing. So you want to have strong communication skills. You want to be able to look people in their eye when you're talking to them. You want to be able to show things that you need to show if you have something that suggests that. You want to be able to respond with your hands and your bodily reactions. Most of our communication and our conversation is nonverbal. So watch how you're doing things when people are talking to you. Try to show that you're an active listener and you're listening to things. Problem-solving abilities or problem-solving skills are next. If you're somebody that gets worked up about everything, you need to try to fix that before you try to get in a professional role. Honestly, if you haven't studied Stoicism, you need to. Stoicism simply says you're there and you're aware of your feelings, but you don't respond in a certain way until you've had time to think it through. And that way you're giving the right answer. You're not doing anything over emotional, and it shows that you have the ability to effectively listen. And that is the most important part when it comes to problem solving. When you're solving problems for a company or organization or a team, sometimes everything is going right, but two key players might not like each other. So the problem solving there might be you just work as a go-between between those two people. You just need to be objective. You need to be able to handle that. So problem solving is the third trait that employers need. The fourth is team player mentality. This is hammered through everybody on everything we do these days. Look, your own individual contribution is what your pay should be measured on, okay? But your ability to be a team player is going to determine how far you move through a company. Because if you can work with other people, they enjoy working with you, they think you pull your weight and then some, and they also think you're respectable and you're respectful of them. That's who people want to be on a team with, right? And anytime you can work with other people and have a reputation of someone that is supportive to do those things, you want to have that be said about you. The fifth is initiative and proactivity. So prior planning is always better than having to do something out of urgency. So you want to have the initiative, you want to be proactive in things and try to cut off issues before they arise. And when you do that, document those things. Share that with your supervisor, share that with your boss, share that with the people that would be above you, because one day that initiative and that proactivity, that is a way to get promoted and get moved up. If you enjoy handling the tough stuff, I enjoy handling the tough stuff, and professionally it's given me a way to make a living for a very long time, just because stuff's going to happen. If it's operations or any work location, you're going to have bad things happen. So you have to be able to take the initiative and work through that thing. And sooner or later, you'll become a leader because of that, and you'll be leading teams through tough stuff. So that's the way to go there. 6 is emotional intelligence. We've talked about emotional intelligence on this channel quite a bit. There's several videos dedicated specifically to emotional intelligence. So if you want to look into that, go ahead and take a look. Basically, emotional intelligence says you know how to basically handle other people with empathy, show self-awareness, and show social skills. So it's basically the whole interpersonal communication. You have skills there that are above average, and that's what you want to do throughout your whole life. That's what you want to do. If you can do that and work with different people in these ways, you're going to be more successful at everything you do. So emotional intelligence is number 6 on that list. Number 7 is continuous learning mindset. This is getting beat to death by all different things at the moment. You should always be continuously learning your entire life. So there's no end to your education, right? You want to learn from what's going on. The more you can learn from other people's mistakes, the less you have to learn from your own, That's wisdom. You're learning from other people's failing forward, and you're allowing you're starting where they left off. And the sooner you do that, the faster you do that, the more quickly you can learn those skills and be beyond that. So continuous learning mindset is a priceless personality trait. You want to make sure that you have that, but it's self-driven. If you're having somebody hammer you down with stuff, that's not going to stick, and you're not going to enjoy that. But make it into something you enjoy. Okay, and the last one, number 8 of the list that all employers are looking for, is a cultural fit. That's a hard thing to do these days. Okay, so the best thing you can do about culture is be appropriate. When you show up to work, show up on time, show up ready to work, show up happy. Don't participate in gossip. Try to get in and get better at your job. Try to do things in an order that is predictable. If you do that, then your day is handled more predictably, and you can then share things with others more predictably and be a dedicated, dependable teammate. And that's what you want to be through that. So that's some traits that employers are looking for. So let's talk about just the interview process. Guys, there's thousands of books on interviewing. There's countless. I would say probably tens of thousands at this point. Some from the 80s were very good because at that time the country was expanding at a very rapid pace, where we saw a peak and we saw a very, very big influx and success for companies, organizations, and the folks that were working at that time. Pay rates went up, and employers basically across the country were hiring folks very rapidly in the 80s, early 90s. We had a very good, stable economy back then. So you have a lot of good books written about interviewing and doing all that from all of that. And then if you should have a LinkedIn profile. Everyone should do that. If you have a LinkedIn profile, everyone you meet professionally, you can see if they're on there and you can link with them. If you do that, 20 years from now, you'll have a LinkedIn that has 1,000+ followers. And as you move up in positions, that will be useful to you. You may find jobs from people that were contacts that you just met in a conversation 20 years ago. So have a LinkedIn, add to that, treat it like a LinkedIn profile that's professional, not like a Facebook page. And you will have some success that you can generate from that too, because social media is not going away. All right, there may be new ones that come along, and some of them are a flash in the pan. They're here for a brief period of time, and then they go away or whatever it is. LinkedIn, I think, is going to stay just because it's a professional profile. A lot of companies are on there, and a lot of companies use that to do their recruiting, and some of them use it to do their organizational sales and things like that, which is a little weird. But in an interview, you want people to be able to see that you're enthusiastic. You want them to see that you have confidence, that you're aware of what's going on around you. You want to show your dependability, and you want to show that you have energy. Loyalty, honesty, pride in work, and service for value received, all those things need to be suggested through what you're saying your work history is. If your loyalty to one employer, that's fantastic. The longer you've been at a place, I typically won't hire people for a role unless I've seen they've been somewhere for at least 2 years in that role before, because that shows me they can weather seasonality and they can do the role with confidence even at the hardest times of the year. So that's why I look for that loyalty. Efficiency, to procedures, efficiency in operations, and understanding of economy and profit. Those are all big things that are important to know about what you're doing when you go into that, and your resume should show that you have an understanding of those things. So you can say, well, how do I show that I'm efficient? Say that you closed cycle times, you lowered cycle times if you did that in production. Or show how you were able to stock shelves in a way that was faster than other people because you did everything that was right here and then you moved to the next, etc., etc. You can come up with examples, but just remember, your resume shouldn't have everything on it. It should have little sound bites, so when they see those things, you can then go into discussion later. Make sure it's complete sentences and make sure it's lined out what you did under each job specifically. But you want to have a story that's pretty symbiotic throughout, where you can show how you were good to the company that was good to you. Okay, so when you show that you're a good risk because you understand how important teammates are to a company. Now, there's a few things I'll tell you, and I like this book. It's How to Turn an Interview into a Job. It's a really good source. It's got some old school mentality in it, which I think still serves us today. So this book was written in 1983. There's a couple of things they say that you want to make sure you do in an interview, all right, if it doesn't go the way you think. So one is don't wait over 30 minutes for the interviewer. I think that's a very key thing. I was once offered a job because I left because the interviewer didn't show up on time, and when she did show up, she looked like she had just walked out of a bar or something. So long story short, I drove about an hour to do an interview. The job was local to where I lived at the time, and this was in a rural state, and I drove an hour to do this interview. Once I got there, I waited 45 minutes. I got up, I went to the front desk, I was like, is this person here or not? And the lady was like, oh, she just got here. And I was like, okay, was our interview not scheduled for this time? And the woman confirmed it was scheduled for that time. So I said, all right, well, thank you, I'm not interested. And I walked out. And as I was walking out, the woman that was supposed to interview me was walking in, and she was still wearing her out on the town clothes from the night before, but she was carrying professional clothes in her hand. She wasn't even dressed for it yet. She showed up almost an hour late to interview me. And at that point, that made me pretty agitated because I was a very good candidate at the time. Now, this was like 15, 20 years ago. I was a very strong candidate at the time, and they had recruited me pretty heavily to get me there. So the owner of the company actually called me when I was leaving because the front desk girl called him and told him what happened. And as I was leaving, I was 10 miles down the road maybe, he called me and said, Mr. Hyde, if you'll come back. I was like, dude, this is what represented you and this is what happened. So I told him what was there, and I said, let me ask you a question. Would you take a job that treated people like that when they show up in professional? Because I was wearing a suit and the whole deal. And he basically understood what I was saying, and you know, he did reach out to me a year later, and he reached out to me a year after that too. And both times I told him, nah, I'm good. I want to, I'd rather work somewhere where things that are important, like interviews, those are important. If they've got your time there, they're not paying you yet. So you're giving them that time for free. So they need to treat you respectfully in that time. Show up professionally, have your stuff lined out, but then expect to be treated the same way too. The next thing says, don't wear a coat, a hat, or other outdoor clothing. That's a good suggestion because when you come in with all that junk on you, you have to put it somewhere. So if you had to use public transit, that's a little different, right? So if you have to just try to minimize how much stuff you have to take off or what you have to hold on to. And then if you're able to drive your own vehicle to the interview or you have someone drive you, leave that stuff in the car. Go in just what you have to interview with. The lobby's going to be heated or air conditioned, so go in like you're going to do the interview and be set from the top. Don't wear sunglasses. That's pretty much easy to say. Don't wear sunglasses. Next one, don't address the interviewer by her first name or his first name. I don't do that, but I also don't mention their name. I just ask questions as a person asks questions. I said, well, what would you do in this situation? Instead of sir or David or Kevin or whatever it is, that's what I do. I just get around that. Don't smoke or chew gum. Do not do that on the site. Let me tell you, there was a period of time when I didn't hire smokers. I didn't hire smokers because the place we were at was it was a high risk for fires. And smokers sometimes will go places to try to sneak in a smoke in places that aren't smoking areas. And we have literally had locations burned down from that before at that company. So I didn't hire smokers. Also, smokers take 15-minute breaks every 2 to 3 hours that other people don't take. And so their work is diminished by that lack of production and that lack of attention. Next is don't interrupt the interviewer. That's a strong one because the interviewer may have a specific question they want to ask you. They have limited time for this interview. So they may have a specific question they're trying to ask you. So allow them to finish speaking before you start saying a response. 2, active listening means you're being quiet to hear the comments or the question in its entirety, because that is going to give you the best definition on what to respond to. So hold your horses. I know it's exciting and you're excited to be there. This may be a job that you want very bad. So if that's the case, just pause, let them finish, and then you can answer the entire question, not just the part that you heard initially. Don't object to discriminatory questions. So we live in a different world now than what 1983 was. If someone asks you something that you deem discriminatory, just give them a slight answer. Don't go into anything deep or anything that actually makes you feel uncomfortable. Give an answer you feel comfortable with. I wouldn't say, well, I don't feel comfortable with that question. I would say, well, the situation pretty much determines what's necessary, or something like that, where it's a vague answer that's not specific around that, because frankly, the interviewer shouldn't be asking you inappropriate questions in the first place. But 2, listen to the whole question, because it might not be an inappropriate question. It might be that, hey, this job, you stack 70-pound pallets all day long. Can you do that? Is that something you've done before? And if so, what work history do you have where you had that level of manual labor in it? They may be asking a question like that you want to answer if that's the case, because you don't want to do something that's going to be, if they have opportunities for other jobs, you don't want to put in the wrong job for you based on something like that. Don't look at your watch during an interview. That's huge. That's huge. Most people don't wear a watch anymore, right? A lot of people wear Apple watches. Take the Apple Watch off in the car. Leave your phone in the car. Do not be on your phone or jack on your Apple Watch in an interview. I have ended interviews where the pay was over $100,000 a year. I have ended interviews because the person pulled out their phone and were on their phone in the interview. Okay? As an interviewer, also, I don't look at or mess with my phone during an interview. So I expect to be treated in the same way if I'm interviewing, right? Don't read documents on an interviewer's desk. So don't be nosy, don't be looking at people's stuff, etc. Because you may be brought into a room where this person is the decision maker and they have private documents on their desk. Basically act like you have a non-disclosure agreement, an NDA, when you're in that person's office, because you don't want to be doing that. You want them to be focused on you, not on what you're focused on. Don't pick up any objects in the interviewer's office. A lot of people don't like people that touch their stuff. So that's a great suggestion. Keep your hands to yourself, sit, have your fixed space and stay within that fixed space, because that will also make them feel like they're a little more comfortable. So those are some great things around interviews. And let me say this. I've done interviews for roles that were hourly and roles that were salary based with commissions that were huge paydays. And I've had people show up dressed poorly. And so let me give you the worst case. And I had a guy come in one time with his pants sagging, no shoestrings in his shoes, tennis shoes, and what we call a wife beater, a tank top undershirt on. And when he walked into my office manager was standing out there looking at me to see how I was going to respond. And as he walked in, I was like, "Sir, you're here for an interview?" And he said, "Yeah, that's me. I was like, "No, it's not." I was like, "This is not what someone dresses like in an interview. This is a career position that you're interviewing for. Clearly, you're not there yet. So have a nice day." And I walked him right out of the office. One of my guys recommended him to me, said, "Go up here and talk to my boss and let's see." So I went to that gentleman that recommended this guy. And I said, "Go outside in the parking lot, look how your boy showed up." And so he went outside and looked at him and came back in. He was like, "I'm sorry, boss, will you please give him one more chance?" Went through all this other stuff. I said, "Yeah, reschedule it for the same time next week. And if make sure he understands what that means." And so the next week, this gentleman showed up in a suit, dressed to the nines, had his resume in his hand. I said, "Good morning, how you doing?" "Good morning, sir, how are you?" It's a completely different human being, right? Even though it was the same person. The point is, if you're at work, you need to be a professional. If you're at work, you need to dress like a professional. It's getting more and more competitive out there, right? So certain jobs are becoming more and more limited. Jobs that pay excessive wages by the piece, those are huge jobs that people want. Commission-based jobs are huge jobs that people want. Jobs that are hybrid and you can do things over Zoom, etc., and they allow you to work from home a few days a week, those are very competitive jobs. So when you show up in this, be dressed for it. Even if you're doing an interview over a Zoom or over some other source, you want to be dressed professionally. Wear the whole suit, put the shoes on, because if you stand up for something and grab something, they see that you're just wearing a shirt and tie and your underwear, that's going to make people feel pretty ridiculous about you, right? So make sure that you're dressing professionally. If you dress for that and you're prepared for that, that's good to go. Here's one other thing I would offer. Take a look at the company you're interviewing with. Take a look at their webpage. Take a look at what LinkedIn says about them. Take a look at any Facebook pages they have. And maybe look at the interviewer's Facebook page. Not to mention anything you said, but just to understand them a little better. If you go through that, the knowledge that you have of the company is going to put you above most candidates, because most candidates just walk in and don't have any preparation going on at all. So just do your best. And what I mean by that is, if you don't have a full suit, but you have a sport jacket and slacks and a tie of some sort, then wear that. Do your absolute best. If you don't have that, wear a nice pair of khakis and a button-down shirt. Whatever you have, do your best. Because if you come in your best and you respond from a place of comfort, you're going to be received better, okay? And when they ask you about questions around growth, let people know how you failed before and what you did to overcome that. If you go in and you act like you've never failed, what that means is you never learned anything. So you need to be honest with the interviewer. You need to be saying, "Well, one time this is what happened, and this is how we got around it, and this is what I learned personally from it, and I thought it was a great learning opportunity," or something like that. Have things where you turn them positive. Do not talk poorly about former employees that you've worked with. Do not talk poorly about your former boss. Do not talk poorly about your former company. If somebody asks, why are you looking for something else? You simply have to say, I'm looking for more opportunities for growth, or I'm looking for something that's a better fit for my skills, or I'm looking for something that will allow me opportunities to grow elsewhere and maybe geographically move somewhere else in the country. Those are the type things you want to say on why you left the job. You don't want to say, because my boss was an ass and everybody was rude. You don't want to say that, because you want to show that you have resilience. In that last job, if you were there for more than a year, then you had some dedication to the job. You lasted through seasonality of the job. And you can say, well, there wasn't enough opportunity for growth. That's a fantastic reason to say why you left somewhere. And then if they ask you to expand on that, well, what kind of opportunities are you looking for? Have that lined up. Say, I just wanted to learn on the job so I can become a better employee, a better citizen, and do better financially. But also, I'm interested in blah, and come up with it, finance or operations or safety or whatever it may be. And that may lead you down a path that will open a door for you that you didn't know was in front of you. So hopefully this is of value to you. Remember this, your first 90 days on the job is a trial, even if it doesn't say that in the paperwork. You do not need to be late. You do not need to be tardy. You do not need to miss. You need to show up professionally. You need to be happy that first 90 days. And when people say, I can't be happy for it, yes, you can. You can have a viewpoint that you're grateful for the situation, and an attitude of gratitude is going to make you smile more and make you be more receptive to things. If you do that for the first 90 days, you're putting your best foot forward, and you're going to make it much further than other people. If you're showing up late in the first 90 days, if you're taking long breaks, if you're starting to complain about things and all that, it's not going to go well for you. So not only focus on when you get the job, but have this in the mindset when you're trying to get the job, how you'll remember where you are when you need work. And so when you have a job, you can be more grateful for the work you have. Well, this video went a little long, but I hope it's useful to you. If you like content such as this, please like and subscribe. Please share the channel with anyone that thinks you think may get a benefit from this. The references today were primarily how to turn an interview into a job. This was written by Jeffrey Allen, and this is from 1983, but it's still a very relevant thing. Sometimes things go out of style, and they come back and are very useful. Another good set of books you could look at is 60 Seconds to You're Hired. It's a very good book. It's got great suggestions with modern suggestions and how you do that. It says more than 100 answers to tough interview questions. If you read something like this, it can give you an idea maybe how not to get stuck. And if you write down 10 to 12 things like that, you will most likely be safe to any response. And the last one is Neil Yeager, Lee Hughes, Power Interviews, Job Winning Tactics from Fortune 500 Recruiters. This does line out with that. I've worked with several Fortune 500, 100, and 200 companies. And some of the questions they ask are very similar. So that may be able to help you if you're looking for one of those jobs. I'm Ben. Hopefully this is useful to you. Please subscribe. Be good.